Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming and talk about Dan Machi. It's a roundup for episode 5, 6, and 7 because those are the episodes that I didn't do in the last previous weeks. I finally got to them, and well, let me take this off. The reason that it took me a little bit longer to get to these parts of Dan Machi was just because, well, these parts of Dan Machi are pretty dark. Like it's quite a lot. Like I'm sure you've watched the episodes and you probably have the same sensation. These are pretty rough parts. And so I just kind of wanted to wait till we get through them, especially episode 5. Episode 5 is the one that really just makes me feel really bad. Like in the novel, I think it was really well done because with episode 5, the challenge was making those monsters at the beginning, the ones that got killed, making them feel worthwhile. And the novel had a few interesting tricks to do that. You might have noticed that in episode 5 and the end of episode 4, Weine made the effort to call all the monsters by name. That was a trick that the author used, I believe, in order to help solidify these monsters a little bit better. And then when you go into episode 5 and you see the things with the monster fetishist, and you see the way that Ranier was trying to deal with it and how she suicided at the end, it's like, this was a really good way of making you feel, well, if you're the kind of person that would feel something to this kind of stuff, it was really well crafted in the novel, and then seeing it just play out in the anime. These episodes really were just dark parts, so I felt much better just going through it all at the same time. Anyway, this is a roundup video, so it's not going to be a top moments. We're going to talk about some critical things that I think are very interesting from the episodes, and we're going to call it there. It'll just be a very quick update review video for everyone that's just wondering my thoughts about the episodes. So I do have a few small notes here, and my first note was going to be about Ranier and the monsters that got killed. That one's we already just mentioned it. I think that whole moment was, again, so well done, and when you're reading it in the context of a novel, the really interesting thing is seeing how the author tried to make these characters worthwhile, so that when you see them die, it's like, shit, that sucks. And you know, having the monsters be underdogs and then bringing in that really nasty aspect of the monster fetishist. I do know that the anime has kind of toned down on their rhetoric. We do know that they're there, they are brought up sometimes, but the novel is a little bit more aggressive about it. Describe things a little bit in a little bit more creepy way. But of course, when you see the monster fetishists doing their stuff and Rania doing the suicide, you know, it's ultimately one of those things that it brings in that really dark human aspect, which really helps a reader or viewer resonate. And then it also, for me, when I'm seeing this moment, I'm thinking like, shit, I really hope this character has a better life the next time around. One of the things that makes me happy, or one of the bright sides that I see in this, is that knowing that the dungeon is recycling monster souls, you know, I tell myself that this girl's probably going to come back. Maybe she's going to be a little bit more human hating because this is a pretty traumatic experience. But that's the thing. I really do hope that these characters do get to breathe life again, because I think they deserve a better shot. Maybe when the world's a little bit better for them. And that leads us into just more things in episode 5, specifically Bell and his concerns about the monsters. So one thing I really enjoyed in episode 5 was that episode 5 showed Bell having doubts. And this is a really big thing for me, because this is the majority of the Dan Machi narrative. Whenever Bell is talking, it's him really thinking about things. This was great for me because it was a nice time to just... we don't get to see Bell doing internal monologues very often when it comes to the anime, and it's just good to see to what degree Bell dwells on things. Because think about it from his perspective. Like, actually, I have the lines right here. This is Bell talking about those monsters. Does that make it all right to kill monsters? He follows it up by, it's true. Oh, sorry. It's true. Monsters kill people. Is it all right to kill monsters? He talks about how he does it to get closer to what he aspires to. What's important here is that at this point, Bell is still concerned about killing regular monsters, even though he knows that the Xeno kill the regular monsters and eat their resources. So when you look at this whole little situation here with Bell, he's going in circles around the same problem. And this is something that the author in Dan Machi does a lot, just because, you know, in some level, this is realistic. This is a realistic spiraling, but just it also just characterizes Bell so much. Bell is like the ultimate warrior, and you do see that at the end of episode 7, where Bell is almost hyperventilating before he finally does the heroic thing. And Bell will always do the heroic thing. It's just he's gonna spiral a lot before it. But when you go back and you look at those very small lines for episode 5, it is legitimately interesting. Does it make it alright to kill monsters if monsters kill people? Well, I think so. Again, we have to remember that the issue there was the Xenos, and when you look at the Xenos, monsters kill Xenos, so the Xenos kill the monsters without trouble. That's the big interesting thing. The Xenos are killing monsters without any kind of hesitation because they know the situation. They don't care. They're killing monsters and they're getting stronger off of it. And it's just interesting how Bell still sees himself as a villain here, because because of how he identifies why he's killing monsters to get closer to what you aspire to. The Xenos are in the same position as Bell. They are trying to get stronger so that they can survive better and maybe one day see the sun of the surface world. They're trying to get closer to what they aspire to, and one of the paths forward for them to get closer to that is to become stronger, and they become stronger by eating the regular monsters. So it's very interesting. Bell at that point, he doesn't make the full connection, and he doesn't let these ideas run their full course, and this is very consistent with the character. Now I do think on some degree the author has Bell doing this just because this keeps the conflict active with Bell. But definitely, if there was a scene that I would show you just to show you the nature of how Bell spirals, it's definitely episode 5, in this one particular sequence of thoughts. It's just because if Bell actually went and stopped looking at it from his perspective and just shifted his perspective back to the Xenos and just ran through the same rhetoric, he would see that there's not really... he is no more guiltier than the Xenos. There we go. That's what I want to say. He is no more guiltier than the Xenos when it comes to monsters. And he would realize that if he did run through that whole rhetoric. Now we continue more because episode 5 was an episode of rhetoric alongside other things. And it was specifically when Bell is talking to Eyes about killing monsters. Now for this situation, I think Bell should have been I think this is an issue of Bell not asking enough questions, and I think he narrowed it down a little bit too much, but it was a legitimate interesting thing where Eyes is saying, if someone will be made to cry because of monsters, then I will kill monsters. And this is of course when Bell asks if she's gonna kill them. So I think that line is quite alright, but if you look at the qualifying statement that leads to the killing of the monsters, it's if someone is made to be sad. And here's where that's a simple statement, but here's where the complication is. If the issue is that the monsters make people cry, what happens when you have scummy humans like the ones in Evil Us? What happens when they are quite literally ruining society for everyone else? Would Eyes say, I will kill evil people? Is there a fundamental bias or double standard when it comes to monsters and humans? Now, I'm not too sure of Eyes'... I don't remember if Eyes has any other statements about dealing with evil people. I know that... Well, you can kind of see like Ryu has more of a plot point when it comes to evil familias, and Hermes is more involved with the evil familias plot points. But it is interesting. Would she apply that same logic to humans? Because that's what we have to ask. If the big stipulation is people are gonna be made to cry because of monsters, then let's go and let's look at the monsters inside of all the evil humans, because the humans can be just as monstrous. Actually, if you look at the theme for this particular bit, it's just showing us the depths of depravity within humans, especially when you look at Dix and the whole story with Daedalus. So it is worth bringing up because the theme right now is the humans that are worse than monsters. That is one of the big themes of this arc. So that was episode 5's like really relevant moments that I enjoyed. In terms of episode 6, like the things that I enjoyed, like in terms of like the big stuff, it was definitely Lily being brought back in and being made relevant with her revisiting that one guy from her old guild. I thought that was really good. And there was one funny moment in episode 6 where it was like showing Dixon his D in the eye, and I just thought, like, you must have really good vision to be able to see the tiny little detail in that man's eye from where Belle was standing in that scene. I just thought it was funny. But let me just run through again. Episode 6 says, episode 6, I think it was mostly just finding out what exactly had gone on, and Bell meeting up with the rest of the Xenos. I think it was good. Getting the story of Daedalus, that was also really good. Episode 7 is, of course, where Dix decides to be a dick and tells us all of his villainous motivations, and we have Weine getting out of control, and we, of course, have that wonderful hyperventilation at the end. But yeah, no, man. Episode 7 was really good. Again, I think the hyperventilation at the end was really well done. I liked Hermes calling Bell a fool. Like, this is what heroes are sometimes. They stand up for what's right without caring about the circumstance of the situation. I think that was really well done. I think that was a great moment. And again, if I was to show you another moment that shows you the good quality about Bell, it's when Bell stands up for someone that it doesn't look good to stand up for, because that's what a hero does. And especially when Bell was talking about if someone asks for help, he's going to help them out. I think that was also another great moment. Episode 7 really solidified how Bell is willing to go out of his comfort zone if it does mean sticking to his ideals. And mind you, I think what makes Bell really interesting is that you do see him legitimately suffer and spiral. That's the trade-off with Bell as a spiraling character, or a character that goes around the same issue multiple times. When you see him going around the same issue, you know he's struggling, and that repetition pays off sort of when you have these really powerful moments where he's standing up against everything that he's afraid of. And in this case, well, he's standing up against Eyes, and this is a really terrifying situation. Of course, you can also appreciate the build-up here. When you look back at episode 5, Eyes already drew her line in the sand, but that makes sense. It's a novel. They would be building things up. If you look at 5, 6, and 7, they do build into each other really well. Any other thing? Bell and Lid versus Dix I think was really beautiful. I really enjoyed that. And any other things? Daedalus, yeah, finding out about Daedalus was good enough. Like, the whole Knossos thing, I find that a really interesting concept. And one thing I was really surprised about is how much of a prominent plot point that becomes later on. It was not plot point. How much of a prominent element it becomes later on. Like, I would have thought that, you know, it would have been something that just gets small mentions in the future, like as we go past this arc. But no, like, it's interesting. Like, when you look at the way that Monstophilia was worked and how Ganesha has come back into the story and the way that he's come back into the story, very interesting. And it's pretty much that same kind of feel with the whole Knossos Labyrinth. Really interesting. I'm very excited for viewers as you go into the future. There's gonna be a point in some episode in season 4, season 5, maybe. I don't know exactly where we're gonna be, but there's gonna be some point where you're gonna be like, oh shit, yeah, I remember that place, and it actually feels really, really good. And don't worry, that's not really a big spoiler. Like, that's just letting you know, like, it's just telling you that the author does legitimately care about the plot points he throws around. And when you look at, again, the Ganesha stuff, that's the example for how this kind of stuff comes back. Also, the Minotaur beating up the Ganesha Familia, that was pretty badass, and it's good to know he didn't kill anyone. But yeah, overall, Dan Machi, the 5, 6, and 7, I think really great episodes. I feel really bad about the whole situation, and I'm very excited to see the rest of the season, because this is gonna be really interesting. Now, in terms of things that were missed, there were some things that were missed. I don't think we saw anything of Daedalus's notebook, so this is an interesting situation because you don't necessarily need it for the anime, but the novels did a better job of building up Dix. Man, I really hope his name is... Actually, you know what? He's a Dix. I'll just call him Dix. If that's not his name. But Dix had a little bit more build-up. He was a little bit more of a mysterious character. He had a notebook. He was speaking in puzzles at the very early bit, so that when you finally got his reveal, it felt a lot cooler. It felt like, oh, this is what he's talking about. So they did drop a little bit of exposition on Dix. Again, like this, it works really well for a novel. Of course, I would enjoy it to be in the anime as well, but this is one of those sacrifices that is actually totally okay to make, because you don't really need that much of a sense to understand Dix. What it would have just been cool world building details. Now, from the perspective of a novel, what's really interesting here is because the novel takes much longer to come out. Like, it would have taken between the time that Dix is introduced and the time that Dix actually like starts doing stuff, you could assume that 6 or 8 months would have passed. I don't remember the novel's release cycle, but when you consider the release cycle is like that, that's why you would have more build up for a particular character, just to let people have a better sense for the character. So it does make sense why you would do a little bit more exposition in novel format, and why you might do away with that exposition when you come into anime, just because the anime is coming so repeatedly when you're doing an arc. Whereas again, the novels, the really interesting thing about this is that these are 3 novels that cover the same, that have the same core. So you split up a story across what, 6 to 8 months, 12 months, like maybe 2 years, between 1 to 2 years in terms of how long it took to actually get this a full story. Do I have the volumes near me? No, let's assume it would have been volume 9, 10, 11, maybe, or maybe 10, 11, 12. It's those 3. Those 3 come together as a trio. Anyway, and that's what I gotta say about the missed content that I could notice. Guys, let me know what you thought down below. Let me know if you're enjoying the scene of Dan Machi, and let me know if like this is kind of brutal. Just from the people I've talked to on the live streams, it does seem like the anime is having a really good effect in terms of really imparting a kind of fear onto viewers, and I think that's what ultimately the anime and the novel kind of want here. Also, interestingly, I find this one to be a lot more dark than Haruhime's situation, just because this one is like, because they're monsters, it seems like the author feels a lot more comfortable doing horrible things to them. And it really does show, because this is where we're seeing some real depravity. Anyway, everyone, let me know what you thought down below, and until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.